and I'm an experienced educator, an artist, and a published illustrator. I have over 25 years of teaching experience. I have taught all ages, from preschoolers to adults. I graduated from the University of Georgia with a double major in scientific illustration and drawing and painting. I then went on to teach middle school science. I've taught I've taught at Greenwood District 50 middle school science for 10 years. Um, and then I taught art, my other love, at Greenwood Christian School for a couple of years. Then went on to be an adjunct at Lander, where I taught integrated arts education, and then also at Piedmont Tech, where I taught anatomy and physiology. So right now I am teaching preschool music part-time while I'm maintaining my home studio, and I sell my artwork at Main and Maxwell Gallery here in Greenwood. And I've illustrated the book Bat Rocks and Greenies, which was written by Michael and Peg Bassett. So that was so much fun. So as an educator, a small business person, and I am married and am a proud mom and have grandchildren. I have a lot of experience and knowledge that I'm ready to put to work to help us find a way to a healthy tomorrow, a brighter future. I'm ready to work for you.
Well, thank you so much. So if anybody's joining us just now, this is Miss Waldrep. She is running for District 13, the Greenwood County area's South Carolina House seat. She's running against the incumbent, John McCravy, who is not able to be with us this evening. But I would like to go ahead and start asking Miss Waldrep a couple of questions regarding education. So, Ms. Waldrep, what is your opinion of the state of public education in South Carolina today?
Well, I would like to start with the good things that I have seen as I've worked with teachers in the last month to take meals to students or to distribute meals to the students. And I see that the teachers really love and miss their students, and the students are missing and loving their teachers, which that relationship is so crucial. One thing I learned as a teacher is that the students don't care to know until they know that you care. And so that bonding and that relationship is a good thing. And the fact that the students see the school and as their safe place, their happy place, that's wonderful. The not so good, the sad parts is that so many of these teachers who love their students and who love teaching are not staying with their profession. And that is because they are overwhelmed by the demands of teaching such large classes, and they are underwhelmed by the lack of resources, support, and the salaries that they receive. And then for the students, they are forced to receive, by being in those large classrooms, a more monolithic approach to education that may or may not be effective for them, and also experiencing excessive testing that may or may not accurately reflect their skill levels and their strengths. So there is room for much improvement. And while our South Carolina legislators have spent hours and hours debating education reform during January and February and March of this year, the legislators admit that the bill as passed is only a start to what has to be done. And now, because of the economic fallout of the COVID-19 pandemic, the legislators will have to start over on the state budget for the next year, and we'll just have to see which, if any, of the reforms can be implemented.
Yes, ma'am. So, other than some of the things that you spoke about on improvements, what do you think are steps that you would take if elected to help improve public education?
The first thing I would do is to decrease the size of the classrooms over and over and over again. This is the main concern of educators. I know that it will take the hiring of about 500 teachers throughout the state to achieve the ideal class size. And the benefits of having a smaller classroom size is that you can have this more individualized and more varied instruction for students that's more effective to their learning styles. You can assess them individually and help them progress in individual rates that are more appropriate for them. Also, it makes classroom management manageable. Back in the old days, we called that discipline, classroom discipline. But yeah, we have to have smaller classrooms to deal with the discipline issues that are coming into the classroom. So, and then number two, I think teachers need more support, not just with lip service, but with actions. And I think we need to let them decide, not the legislators, about education strategies and testing assessments. We don't need legislators to hand out mandates that they don't know much about because they haven't been in the classroom. We desperately need input from teachers, though. So more input from teachers and fewer mandates from legislators. And when those teachers give that input, they should not be afraid of losing their jobs for speaking out and giving that input. I do realize that funding for more teachers is as much tied to local funding and district funding as it is to the state funding. Representative Ann Parks told us last night that in District 50, through the CARES Act, we received $3.1 million of funding. I wish it could be billion, but it's million. District 51 got $353,000 of CARES funding, and District 52 got $324,000 in funding, and our state library has received about $500,000 through CARES to help online instruction for our students. One other thing is for supporting teachers is that we have to support their decisions that they make in the classroom. As far as management issues go, administrators need to back up the educators, and the school boards need to back up the educators, because it's a very difficult job that everybody's got to be on the same page to do the best management possible in our classrooms.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Other than the CARES Act that you just spoke of, if elected, what would you do to address the funding of public education?
Well, the funding formula is very antiquated. Some parts of it are dating back to the 70s. and we had a totally different culture then. It was based on textiles, and every little town had a textile mill, and revenues were generated differently. So we need to update our education formulas. And I don't know if we're going to have a surplus after the COVID pandemic is over, but I would like to see surpluses being spent for education. And I think we do need to be busy writing grants and letting teachers be creative in drawing the community in to provide resources that may be in-kind donations to some of their classroom activities and so forth.
Okay, thank you. What do you believe is the top issue surrounding public education in South Carolina?
I think that the answer to this question changed drastically about 6 weeks ago. And I will say now that moving forward after COVID-19 in a way that is deals with the inequities that were brought to light by this situation is our top priority right now. The inequities that we have seen is in access to broadband internet. And I believe Representative Parks said that statewide we have about 5% of our students that we haven't heard from since March 13th when schools were shut down. And there are just areas where you cannot get broadband access. And I'm so proud for the innovative measures that the school districts have employed to get Wi-Fi connection for students, like, on school buses and church parking lots and just different places to provide access to the students. But we've really got to get an initiative going. And Representative Jim Clyburn introduced this last week in Congress. It's an initiative that is comparable to the one that we saw back in the 1940s to get electricity to all of rural America. My grandparents tell the story of what it was like to live without electricity. And in the 40s, the government got electricity to everybody in rural America. And that was the 20th century big innovation. And now here we are 100 years later. We need that same kind of initiative to get that internet access out to everybody, that broadband internet access. The other thing is assessment, and that's part of the fourth question. So I'll just leave that to the next question. And then mental health support. And I mean, even without the COVID-19 crisis, we don't have enough mental health support for our students. And it is just pitiful what some of those students are dealing with at home. And like I said, school is their safe place. The number of abuse cases has gone down since March 13th, not because there is less abuse, but because there are less teachers watching out for the students and noticing signs of abuse and reporting it. So we definitely need to have more reinforcement for mental health for our students.
Yes, ma'am. I know that's a scary thought right now for our teachers out there worried about their students and know that some of them aren't in the best of situations. So thank you for bringing that up. Our last question, unless the audience has questions they want to pose, considering how well educators continue to provide instruction after the coronavirus pandemic canceled state testing and other assessments, what are your opinions about accountability measures today?
I think we need to get away from so many standardized testing um, tests, and we need to um, find a way to give a big picture of how the student has performed over the year. And I'm glad that they're including portfolios and assessment now. I'm not sure that having 180 samples from the course of the year per child I'm not sure it's fair to ask a student to accumulate that many examples, but I think it needs to be a blend of work that a child has done in the classroom, performance on some tests, and perhaps some kind of, well, there's just different measures of measuring performance that don't involve pencil and paper, and it could be creative writing or drawing or whatever. And if we had smaller classroom sizes, we could do assessments that are a little more that follow the child so much more than just one flat benchmark for a whole grade. And I think perhaps we could have more input from teachers on designing assessment tools rather than them coming from a central location. And everybody, and that one central location designs an assessment tool for the whole state, regardless of what kind of background that student has. But to follow what I said, legislators don't need to get involved in this in the education strategies. That's the kind of thing that needs to be done by the teachers, and we as legislators just need to make sure you have the support to do that.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. While we're waiting for any questions from the group, and I see one popped up, so while we're waiting for a few other questions, I do want to read the statement from Mr. McCravy, who is our incumbent for District 13. He said, unfortunately, due to the extreme demand from constituents and other appointments during this time of emergency, I am unable to prepare or attend this town hall. And he's going to meet with me at a later time. So he did want to make a statement that his record is clear, that I have consistently voted for the teacher, better pay, lower class sizes, mandatory planning times, less unnecessary assessments and testing, etc. Although the task is huge, we must find a way to fully fund the needs of our schools that is fair to all our citizens. You can find out how Mr. McCravy does vote on certain issues on the state website in the House section if you do want to see how he votes. But hopefully we will have a session with him at a later date. So we did have a question from the audience. This one states, recently there was controversy surrounding the practice of mandating teachers to perform duties outside of their normal teaching hours without extra pay. For example, working concession stands or chaperoning dances. Do you feel that the state legislature should take up this issue? Excuse me.
Well, I used to do those things without any expectation of compensation, so I wouldn't mind assigning stipends to those activities as the teacher is volunteering for that. And perhaps then if there was a stipend attached to it, then teachers would be willing to step up and volunteer for it. As far as it being mandated, yeah, I would have, I would say that probably is not conducive to a good working atmosphere there.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Are there any other questions for our candidate for District 13, Ms. Waldrep, Greenwood County? Well, Ms. Waldrep is very easy to find if you have any questions for her as she begins her process of running for District 13 seat against John McCravy for South Carolina House in Greenwood County. And Ms. Waldrep, I want to thank you so much for coming on with us tonight and letting us know how you feel about education and the concerns that we've got about education this evening.
Thank you. And I want to thank you for giving me this opportunity. And I also want to say that I was able to follow a lot of the debate and deliberation that went on in the legislature for education reform. And I was able to see many of the SC for Ed members who went to the State House after their day at school, and they sat and watched the deliberations in the galleries. And I want to commend you for that. And just to say that as you engage with the governing process, it can only make our government and our society better. So kudos to you for showing up and letting everybody know, hey, what's happening, and we're going to be part of this process. So thank you for that.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much for your support. We certainly appreciate it. Well, you have a great evening, and everyone watching, please remember to go out and vote in your November elections, and we hope to see some change in the State House. Thank you so much.
Thank you. November 3rd, go vote. And if you can, teachers need to run for office too.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. Well, thank you so much, Ms. Waldrep. I certainly appreciate it.
It was my honor and pleasure, and anything I can do to be of help to you, just let me know.
I will. Thank you.